Hi, this is Kevin Allen. I'm the hockey columnist for USA Today, and this is USA Today's World Cup preview show before the Canada versus USA 8 p.m. game. Big game tonight. My special guest is Chris Cook, a writer for the Chicago Tribune who's covered hockey for many years. And Chris, I don't know that there could be a bigger game in Canada than U.S. versus Canada tonight.
Yeah, probably hasn't been biggest game internationally since the Olympics, and this is really going to be a terrific hockey game. You just feel the energy in the city, feel the energy in the building, and you can feel the energy from the players too. We talked to them after the morning skates, and they're really looking forward to this. It should be physical, should be fun, should be fast, and everything's on the line for the USA, so it should be desperate.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that the fact that they lost the first game doesn't really matter. I mean,
Right.
if they win this game, that's really what they need to do, and then beat the Czechs. And you know, the interesting aspect of this, what nobody's talking about, but Mike Babcock said it today, is that Canada's not in for sure. Like
Right.
if they have problems with USA and lose in regulation, then what happens when they play against Team Europe?
That's the thing about this tournament. It's a short tournament where you need pretty much to run the table to be guaranteed you're going to be in. And yeah, if Canada doesn't win, then they're looking at chasing the tournament a little bit. So it should be a very interesting, just a great setup. I think this is really working very well the way they plan this tournament. And now you've got two of the top teams, big rivals, playing for something that really matters. And we haven't made it to the championship round yet.
John Tortorella, the U.S. coach, said in yesterday's practice, and it's a bit of a cliche, but it makes a lot of sense. Your best players have to be your best players, and one of those guys is the guy that you know well, Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks. They're expecting him to sort of carry the load. What do you expect from Kane?
Well, his nickname is Showtime in Chicago, so he relishes opportunities like this on a big stage. He really kind of amps up his game. I expect him, if he can find some time and space, that's the thing. I mean, if you give him any time and space, he's going to be effective. He's going to create some scoring chances. But I think teams have realized that, and they're going to try to clamp down on him. But he's pretty adept at finding that in big games. So I expect him to have a big game. He should be flying out there. I think that's why it's going to be a little physical, because if you can create some space in the corners for him, get the puck out, give him a little room, he's going to be able to create some scoring chances. And I think after that opening game where he didn't create many, he's really looking forward to bouncing back.
There's been a lot of chatter on social media about his line mates. It could be Justin Abdelkader and Stepan playing with him tonight. But, historically, he hasn't played with Jonathan Toews as much as I think fans, think he has. So I think he's accustomed to, excelling no matter who he's with.
Yeah, if you follow the Blackhawks, Joe Quenneville, their coach, likes to, we call it the line blender, likes to hit puree and kind of move everything around, although he was pretty set last season with Artemi Panarin and Anisimov on that second line with the Blackhawks. But no, he doesn't play with Jonathan Toews during the regular season very often. He's a guy who makes other line mates, he makes them better. And that's just because he has the defense drawn towards him. He's as good a scorer as he's a terrific passer as well, just amazing vision. I think he'll try to use that tonight. Now, whether I would put Abdelkader on the left side, maybe not my first choice for a Patrick Kane line mate, but we'll see if John Tortorella knows what he's doing right now.
Well, another player you know a lot about because he used to be a Blackhawk, he's not now. He's a Winnipeg Jet. I'm talking about Dustin Byfuglien. Did not play in the first game, but will be in the lineup tonight. How big an impact will this 260-pound defenseman
I think
make?
he's literally going to make an impact by crunching guys into the boards. He's a big guy who isn't afraid to get dirty in front of the goal and in the corners, and that's what Team US needs to do to kind of slow things down. You don't want to get in a track meet with the Canadians. They're just going to burn you. We can see what happens. So Byfuglien can get dirty, get in front, provide some screens, really get in the goaltender's face. That's what he does. When he's effective, that's what he does and creates traffic. I think you'll see a motivated Dustin Byfuglien tonight.
The John Tortorella style of play, on social media, the discussion is about how physical. But, really what he wants to do is play like the Pittsburgh Penguins played when they won the Cup. He wants to put pressure on the puck. That does include physical play. But what do you expect out of the Americans tonight? Will they get to the net? They didn't against Team Europe.
No, they really didn't. And I think that's what they're going to put an emphasis on, getting to the net. They're going to try to possess the puck a whole lot more than they did in that first game. That's the key. I mean, we've seen that before. If you can win face-offs, or if you can go in the corner and win those battles and get the puck, then you've got a chance to hold on to it and create some scoring chances. They were not adept at that against Europe. And Canada's a very difficult team to do that against. So if Team USA is going to have any success, they're going to get that puck, hang on to it, and then try to slow Canada through the neutral zone when they do have the puck.
One of the things coming into the tournament that we talked about, that USA had a strength in net, but when USA plays Canada with Carey Price in the other net, the Americans don't have an advantage unless you still think Carey Price is rusty. Where are you on that?
I don't think he's rusty. I don't think he's allowed a goal in over 200 minutes in international play, and Team USA can't score generally. So I think it's a perfect matchup for the Canadians. You got a guy in there who should be a little rusty, but he seems confident. And those guys playing in front of him realize that if they do make a mistake, he's going to probably have their backs. He's going to make the big save. I think it's going to be a tough road for the Team USA to kind of break that. They need a goal early. If you can get a goal early, then you kind of get on a roll there. We always say that. I think in this game that's particularly true. If they can get to him early, you build some confidence. Maybe he looks a little rusty, kind of roll from there.
Where are you on the whether John Tortorella is the right coach for this team question?
Well, I'm probably on the with a lot of the fans, so I'm not quite sure he's the right coach of this team. It's tough to say after one game of this tournament. Let's see what happens after tonight. I also had some issues with the way they built this team. I think this team was built to be physical. I think it was built to beat Team Canada, but there are other teams in this tournament, as we found out. Europe went ahead and won that first game. It's when it comes down to it, it's the players really, and I just don't think that USA's got the players who can match Team Canada. Maybe not even North America. We're not even sure. Team North America, that's an intriguing team too. I'm sure you'll get to that, but I just think that maybe if this doesn't work out tonight and Team USA is eliminated, I can't imagine Tortorella will be back next time.
Let me put you on the spot. What do you got kind of prediction you got for tonight?
I think Canada's going to roll the United States. I really do. I think they're going to win the game 4-1, 4-2. I just see Canada being the best team in this tournament. I think they're going to win it all.
Well, thanks for your time, and if you can stop by and maybe get our friend Ken Campbell to come and join me on the way out of town. I ask you to do everything. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Keep going because we're going to be finishing up right here, and I guess one of the points I wanted to make here is just about the history of Canada versus the U.S. while we're waiting for Ken Campbell of the Hockey News. Just to give you some numbers here. USA is 3-8-1 in the combined Canada and World Cups against Canada, and all three of those wins came in 1996 when USA won the World Cup of Hockey. That was the team, obviously, with Keith Tkachuk and Bill Guerin and Mike Modano and Brian Leetch. And since 1931 at the World Championships, the Americans have only won 4 times in 43 meetings. That's 4 times in 43 meetings that USA has beaten Canada. Sit down, Ken. At the World Championship. So there's a long history of Canada and USA playing, and it hasn't been very good for the Americans. And that will be the lead. And this is Ken Campbell of the Hockey News, who's covered the NHL as long as I have, which means he and I are archaic. But Ken, let me just ask you, what's your thoughts of this game? Even though USA is 0-1, it still feels like it's a huge game.
Oh, it is huge. It is huge, and I think, we're going to find out tonight if the way USA built their team and the way they approached the roster and the philosophy that they had and the coach that they picked and everything is going to work, because they made absolutely no secret of the fact when they were putting this team together that they were building a team to beat Canada, and I think that was where they were flawed. I remember back to Nagano in 1998. As you remember, one of the greatest U.S. moments was '96 when they won the World Cup over Canada, and 2 years later in the Olympics, Canada was so focused on beating the Americans and they built a team to do that they forgot about that there were a lot of other good teams in the tournament as well, namely one which was the Czech Republic, who beat them out in the semifinals. So I think we'll find out tonight if this sort of rough and tumble lunch bucket roster that the USA has put together, if that was the way they should have gone, and it will be an interesting game to see. It'll be interesting to see the physicality. I haven't seen a lot in this tournament. I mean, there's been some big hits, but I would expect tonight will probably be the most physical game of the tournament so far.
Let me pose this question: is this a wrong roster? If they lose, is this a wrong roster issue? Is it a style issue, or is this group of American players simply not good enough? You can make a case that they overachieved in 2010, because going into that tournament, a lot of us had predicted them not to be in the medal hunt, and they were. So what's your feeling about this generation, this group with, Zach Parise and, Patrick Kane and so forth? Is it good enough to be with Canada?
It should be. I mean, it may be not good enough to beat Canada, but it should be good enough to be better than it is. I was crunching some numbers. I think in best-on-best competition internationally, USA's gone like, what is it, 197 minutes without scoring a goal.
Yeah.
Forget about win a game.
Going back to,
Forget about win a game. They haven't scored a
Sochi
goal.
Olympics.
Yeah, they haven't scored a goal. The last goal they scored was against Czech Republic, I believe, in the quarters of Sochi. They lost the semis 1-0 to Canada. They lost the bronze medal game 5-0 to Sweden, and then they got skunked the other night. So I mean, it's not even getting to the point where they got to win games. They got to score a goal. And tonight they're going against a team that hasn't given up a goal in more than 200 minutes in international hockey. The last goal Canada gave up was against Latvia in the quarters of Sochi as well. So. Is this team good enough to beat Canada? I don't think it is. I don't think this group is good enough, but I think it's better than it should be. There's something wrong. I mean, we look at the Russians too, and I mean, you see all the talent that they assemble, and you wonder why they can't play together as well. And I mean, I've got some issues with this roster, with this particular roster. I think there were some players that should have been on this roster that weren't, and I think this team, way more than Canada, is hurt by the fact that the under 24s, the under 24s are together. I mean, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, they could have probably been on this team and maybe been contributors to this team. A young defenseman like some of the young defensemen they have, like a Zach Werenski or whatever, right? They could have been part of this program. And I don't know. I mean, it just seems that they seem to have stalled. Like 2010 just seems to have sucked the wind out of this program a little bit for some reason. I can't really explain why, but they should be a lot better than they are.
Well, I guess the way I look at it is, when the greatest American hockey generation was coming up, I'm talking about the Modano, Tkachuk, Guerin group, we knew they were going to be great. I mean, it was talked about all the time when they came together. And the flag carriers were evident. The Brian Leaches, the Chelios, everybody knew Tkachuk and Guerin were going to be difference makers. Mike Modano was going to be an offensive force. Richter was going to be the goalie. When I look at this generation, I don't know who the flag carrier is on this. Is it Patrick Kane? He's a really fabulous player. He's the MVP of the league. But when I look at Canada and I see Crosby and Taves and Drew Doughty, and I look at the Swedes and I see a defense with Victor Hedman and Ekman Larsson and Erik Karlsson, and I look at the Russians with those 5 dynamic forwards, and then I look at the U.S. and I see 10 forwards who scored 20 or more goals, but only one really special player, and that's Patrick Kane. And I guess my argument is that, maybe we've expected a little bit too much out of this group. They just haven't, they're really good players, but they're just lacking something, a little bit of a greatness to them.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I mean, and maybe, by the time Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel are at the level where we think they're going to be, and I think Austin Matthews is going to be from what we've seen of him in this tournament, I think he is going to be a spectacular NHL player. He's going to be, maybe not an offensive force, but I see him being another Jonathan Taves kind of guy. So by the time those guys are ready to really, hang with the big boys in this tournament, maybe Patrick Kane's going to be a little long in the tooth by then. So, I guess you're hanging your hat on some of these younger players that are, that are coming up. And it's funny, and what makes the U.S. struggles even more perplexing is that, when they put together the Ann Arbor, which is now, I guess, based in Plymouth, the national development team, it was done to address this, and they've been very, very good at the under 18s. They win it almost every year. They've done very well at the World Junior level, at the younger levels, but it just doesn't seem to translate once you get up to the NHL level, and once you end up getting, once you end up playing these teams like Canada with the depth that Canada has. Nobody has that kind of depth, but it's funny, you do expect a little more out of this group than you've gotten, and maybe tonight's gut check time for this program. Maybe this is kind of a crossroads for this program tonight. Like, they built this team to beat Canada. If they come up woefully short against Canada, then maybe it's time to sit back and say, what are we doing here?
Well, I personally believe that win, lose, or draw against Canada, or regardless of the outcome of this tournament, that this team will be in a transition. Like, I think they're going to that Matthews and Eichel will, even by 2018, will be the top two centers, because obviously they do not have dominant centers on the U.S. team. They have really good wingers. And Patrick Kane is still young enough at 26 to be a part of this, as is Pacioretty. So when you add in those two players and some of the young players, Zach Werenski, who's coming to the Blue Jackets, and even in 3 or 4 years, Clayton Keller could be part of this group. I think
Seth Jones.
Seth Jones,
I mean, you look at all those guys. There's nothing wrong.
I think we're moving. I mean, I think this, regardless of what happens, I think there's going to be a transition team. We're going to see the merging of these two teams. This essentially is the last hurrah for this group, is my theory.
I would agree with that. The David Backuses, the Joe Pavelskis, even to a certain extent the Ryan Suters and the Zach Parises, who are getting up there in age. This is and I mean, John Tortorella referred to that when the tournament started. He said it's time. It's time. This is this team's time. And you talk about the window closing on NHL teams and their chances to win the Stanley Cup. I would suspect that this team has better make some hay now, because with this group that window is closing as well.
Let's close with put you on the spot a little bit. Prediction for tonight?
I think Canada will win the game. I just think Canada is just too strong. I predicted Canada to win the tournament. I don't think they'll lose a game. I think they'll win the championship in 2 games over Sweden. I would suspect that Canada's they're just rolling. Like I said, they're a team that hasn't given up a goal in 4 games, and the U.S. hasn't scored in almost 4 games. It'll take a superhuman effort, and it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that it could happen. But when you've got that depth at forward, those defensemen, and if you get past all those guys, you only have to score on the best goalie in the world after that.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, I don't see it happening for U.S., but all the more power to them if they can.
Thank you. This is Ken Campbell of the Hockey News.
My pleasure.
And I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today, and I'll be wrapping it up here. Just finally, my prediction is I think this is going to be a very close game. I think we'll see the best effort out of this team. I've said all day long that I think if the Canada and USA played 10 times, Canada would win 8 of them, but I think the USA could win 2. And is tonight? Well, I think given the amount of pride that I think probably some of these guys like Suter and Parise, I think there's a shot here. But if you put a gun to my head, I think that Canada will win the game. Thank you much.